This is an unbelievably exciting video for me because, as you can see, I recently picked up the M72A3 Law rocket launcher, and I don't currently have any 40mm grenades that fit inside of it. And the ones that I purchased, they didn't fit, unfortunately. They are not spec with the Ace Tech ones. This is a sponsored video, totally coincidental. Around the same time, T238 reached out to me and asked if I'd like to check out their grenade shells. I will leave the links to purchase all of these if you're interested down below in the description. Again, this is a sponsored video, but I do have complete free range of opinion on these. No one's forcing my hand. The three that we have to look at today are the T238 Spin, the T238 Hexa, and the T238 Matrix. All function differently in their loading system. I have not fired any of these besides one of them. And they also all have some sort of a flashing or a tracer function, which is also super cool. So we'll take one at a time, we'll review it, and then we'll go test all three, and I'll kind of figure out what I like about them, what I don't like about them, and, you know, all the other great stuff. Now, prior to opening up, taking a look at fire testing and all of the great things we're going to do, I do want to say that each one of these is made with extremely high build quality and construction, and all made of a CNC machined aluminum. All three of these crazy looking shells also have the ability to flash and trace tracer rounds, sporting an array of different colors and different modes, and the main thing that's different about all three is how they load and expel BBs out of the front. So the first one I'd like to take a look at on today's list is the T238 Matrix, because it's arguably the weirdest loading mechanism that we've seen so far in any 40mm grenades that are available on the airsoft market, and I'll show you why. So at first glance, this guy works almost like a similar or any of your other familiar airsoft 40mm grenades. It has a primer on the bottom and a gas fill valve. You have to fill it with gas first. Super interesting. I can't seem to tell if it is for some reason a dual stage valve or if that little valve port is just too thick for a standard propane tank and an adapter. Moving on forward, this guy comes apart into two pieces. This is your shell casing, and then your light and gas expel port. And then when you screw this guy on, the last two things you need to keep in mind is your charging point, which is USB-C, and the button or the actuator to adjust all of your modes, which you'll need some sort of a small pin to go ahead and depress. The funky part is the loading mechanism. It comes with a handful of these. However, these are expendable plastic casings, so you'll have to purchase these as they start to break. And all you're going to do is take a bucket of BBs, toss that guy in, clamp it closed like an eggshell, which is super cool and super fast, and then put it in with the flat side down. And now you're ready to fire. Next on the list is the Spin, which is ever so slightly different and a little bit more similar to something that we would see available on the airsoft market. Again, your primer is on the bottom, your gas fill valve is just the same. And then up at the top, you'll see you have three lights. Your USB-C charging point, which has a small little rubber cover. This time, an actuator button, which is completely accessible from the outside, which is super cool. And then, kind of like the 40 mics, a single port to load your BBs, which are kept inside by an O-ring. There you have it, loaded and ready to roll. And finally, we have the T238 Hexa, which again is very reminiscent of the other two, plus any other 40mm shells that you would see on the market. This is more of a shower, so you're going to find your primer on the bottom, your gas fill port right next to it. Same thing with the three lights up in the front. You'll find your charging port right between the three. Super cool. You have a button that is activatable on the outside. And then this one, instead of filling a single port, you're going to find 6 ports that you're going to fill your rounds in. And as you can see, all of your 6 tubes are loaded with projectiles. For our starting fire test, as much as I'd love to start with the launcher, I don't think it's a good idea because sometimes that could not pressurize all the way, or it could cause blockages up in the front, and I don't want anyone to think that the launcher is the issue. So before we throw them in there, we're going to fire them all by hand first. We'll start with the Hexa, which is something a little bit more similar to what we're familiar with at the moment. Those BB shower grenades. And we're sitting about 30 feet, maybe 35 feet out from that little pink body-shaped target out there. It's about the same shape as a torso, so we'll see if we can make contact from here, or at least close, because I have no aiming mechanism. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, it absolutely rained fire and emptied all of the BBs. And then to reset it, you have to deep depress, and it should reset, and you're ready to fill again. Now, I've already fired this one, so I'm going to try and pretend like I don't know what I'm talking about, but naturally so. I assume this one's going to be the least accurate, the least amount of distance, and the least consistent, just because I don't really think it has such a great air seal here, and it's kind of just a shower. It's going to definitely fire off a ton of nades, or a ton of BBs, but I don't think it's going to get much out of it. But we'll take a look in 3, 2, 1. That was like a late fire. It flew pretty high. Why did it have such a hard time? What was that about? All right, we'll depress it, and then we'll go for another one. Next, we have the T238 spin, which is the single projectile hole, and I think this one's going to be the most accurate and probably fire the furthest because the most pressure is pushing out between one port. If we remember anything from those devious 40 mics, which were really questionable on legality, to be totally honest with you, they were very similar to these, so it should also sound like less of a pop and more of like a zipping sound, because that's how a lot of nades are, but I'm not sure if that's the case. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, it was definitely more of a zip, and it looks like we already reset that one, so we don't have to reset it. That's cool. They all functioned all right. Now it's finally time. Really excited to test this guy out in the launcher. The only thing that I'm worried about is a lot of the time with these launchers, you'll find that the actuation of the primers, it's not always the most successful, because maybe you have to press this down really quickly and the trigger doesn't allow you to do so, or you have to press it deep enough, and if you don't press it too deep, it doesn't open up all the gas, and the gas won't expel completely, so sometimes it causes the shells to be weaker, and I hope that's not the case. But first, to start off, we're going to throw in the spin, which again is just that single line of BBs. Safety off. 3, 2, 1. Jesus. Sounded like the most aggressive zipper on the planet. That honestly was really good. That was really good. It sounded evil. Let's move on. Up next we have the Hexa, the shower grenade, which is your standard grenade. Oh, a ton of BBs just came rolling out, or maybe those are BBs from the spin. I don't know. Let's throw it in anyway. All right. 3, 2, 1. That was fired all right. Not the furthest. Pretty standard. That was no like Ace Tech 40mm shell, but that was all right. And lastly, we've got the Matrix. I hope the firing mechanism allows that big like claw capsule not to get stuck in the front of this. I think that's probably the biggest problem. 3, 2, 1. Those didn't go all that far. Sounded great, but those maybe made it, give or take, 25 feet. I don't know. Definitely maybe not the best one for the launcher. It's a funky system, but it worked just fine. Forgot to mention it, by the way, but all of the little capsules that I fired out of the Matrix survived. They're definitely a little weaker, but I might be able to actually use them again, which is kind of cool. Now I'm doing the night mode test. I was having some trouble with the Hexa, but the other two worked out just fine. 1. Up next is the Hexa. Can't tell if that one lit up. Did it light up? And then finally, the Matrix. It was like a late fire. It like timed itself for a second there. That was kind of weird. Now, as super cool as all of these honestly looked at night, this one I couldn't get to fire off. I did want to go over something really quickly before we went and deep dive into which one works best in what conditions. Specifically, first, the Matrix functioned well. Something to keep in mind, though, for some reason it has an extremely long cooldown time, and I can't figure out why. If you don't wait until it comes back to room temperature, like 100%, like 15, 20 minutes, it will fire off the projectile and just lob it out of the chamber, and that's kind of weird. Also, when I pressurized it outside of the replica or outside of the launcher, it would, for some reason, like lag for a second and then fire, or sometimes it just didn't fire right away, so keep that in mind. The spin, on the other hand, super cool, functioned flawlessly every single time that I put in the launcher. However, for some weird reason, if you fired it and pressurized the pin too far downwards, it would only fire the projectiles that are inside of the initial tube, which is a problem because if you unscrew it, there are a load of BBs inside of the base that wind throughout the center of this thing, and those wouldn't fire out right away if you didn't have it inside of a launcher. So I think pressurizing the pin too far downwards and too quickly caused that problem. The Hexa fired perfectly every single time. The only issue was, no matter what I did, every time that I pressed the button to turn this guy on, and it turned on correctly, it wouldn't light up or cause that like flame or tracer function at all for some reason anytime that I went to go fire it at night at all. So I don't really know, but again, it worked just fine. Boom, and now it's time to get technical. I created a little chart. I figured this is the best way to break down a bunch of different things. It's the easiest way to compare different items as opposed to just talking about them. So I can show you which one's the best for you and the best for me. In general, there's three things that I tend to look for when it comes to 40 millimeters. The loading speed specifically, the range, and the accuracy. The other things are just pluses and minuses. To start off with loading speed, it's clear to me that the Matrix is easily the quickest to load because all you're going to do is take the capsule, scoop up some BBs, and boom, you're ready to roll. They all take gas the same way, so that's the only thing you really have to worry about. The other two fall behind. Now, when it comes to range, the spin is easily going to take the cake, specifically because all of the gas is propelling itself out of a single port, which allows you to increase the speed and velocity of the BBs. There's less gas distribution to different areas, different ports, or spilling out of the sides. When it comes to accuracy, you may be surprised it's not the spin, even though it's all pointing out of a one port. With 40 millimeter nades, accuracy would be considered what are the likelihood you're going to hit something. Just like if you're using a shotgun, let's say your accuracy is better with birdshot than it is with a slug, because you're going to hit it more likely than not if you have a bigger spray. So the Hexa, being that it's a shower style grenade, is going to take the cake there. Now, ease of use wise, they're all super easy to use. Put gas in it and load BBs. It doesn't take a genius to do it. But the function that these all shine for, or what they're different about than other 40 millimeters, would be their flash or flame function or their tracer function. And when it comes down to the tracer function, the Hexa and the spin are definitely easier to use because they have a button that's easy to access just outside of the nade. The Matrix, you actually need like a small pin or like a needle or a super microscopic screwdriver to actuate or press the button, which I think is ridiculous. I'm never going to have that on me. So the Matrix and spin, the Hexa and spin take the cake there. For the flame function, unfortunately, we didn't really see it out of the Hexa. I'm going to assume it's very similar to the spin, being that it has these same three lights, just a little bit closer together. However, the Matrix in the video looked absolutely ridiculous. It looked like a freaking volcano, so we're going to give that one to the Matrix. And last but not least, cost to run. If you're going to run all of these on just general BBs, go with the cheapest, lightest weight possible. It's going to save you the most money. However, if you're going to run tracers, it's still going to cost you a ton with the tracers. I would say they're all going to cost you around the same, except the Matrix is the most costly because you have to purchase those capsules if you lose them, if you fire them and they break, or if you just want more. So those capsules add a definite extra expense. It's not the most expense, but it adds more. Now, again, I hope you didn't mind my nerdy breakdown. I hope that kind of explained things for you and you have a better idea of what I think would work best. Maybe you feel differently. Let me know in the comments below. These are some cool nades that you can even pick up on Amazon if you wanted. I'll leave a link in the description, like I said. And I really appreciate the company letting me check these guys out. However, I do not, by any means, think that these are the best on the market. And not nearly the best on the market, but they're definitely cool. It's definitely a different twist on nades that we haven't seen before in the past. So that's really cool. And I like the idea that companies are now trying to incorporate the idea of tracing BBs with 40 millimeters. It makes them a little bit cooler. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next adventure.